Decipher the terrifying secrets of those who have once walked beneath the 18 layers of hell. Do you believe in heaven and hell? Or should the question be, do you believe in life after death? No one knows, at least not those who are still alive and watching this video. However, the 6 individuals mentioned by Team Time Gate had a peculiar experience, taking a tour around hell and then returning. It could be a near-death experience, the faith of a pastor, or an individual who accidentally encountered a traffic accident leading to a deep coma. Although they differ in terms of time, location, or circumstances, all of them share a horrifying experience and describe hell in an eerily similar manner. Above all, let's prepare ourselves with a beautiful soul before watching this video, because, in the words of Bodhisattva Ksitigarbha, if we don't enter hell, then who will enter hell? Number 6. The first near-death experience was passed down.
The first story is about George Ritchie, one of the earliest near-death experiences in hell, and it has been widely circulated. He also published a book based on his experience in 1978, titled Return Tomorrow. In World War II, Ritchie contracted pneumonia and was transported from the front lines to a military hospital in Virginia, where he was initially presumed to have died. He remembered the moment when his consciousness detached from his physical body and wandered throughout the city. During this time, he encountered an extraordinary entity that transported him to a different era, much like the way Dante described in his Divine Comedy. This mystical life form allowed him to witness various situations in which both human beings and souls had to struggle, one of which depicted people languishing in a bar, smoking, and drinking excessively. Ritchie moved forward, the scene growing even more terrifying. One of the scenes, there was a desolate land where enraged giants were battling each other. Ritchie say, compared to biting and punching, it's even more terrifying. There are many crazed individuals tormenting each other. I, up until now, had never imagined such horrifying scenes unfolding around me. Not long after, Ritchie woke up from the coma. Later on, he became a psychotherapist and published several books related to near-death experiences. Eventually, these works became important resources for researchers.
Number 5. Reverend Gerald Johnson saw Jesus.
In 2016, Reverend Gerald Johnson shared on YouTube what he saw and heard about his journey to hell during his near-death experience. When he experienced a sudden heart attack and thought he was about to die, he believed that when his heart condition worsened, his soul truly left his body. He thought he would ascend to heaven because he had done many good deeds in his life and had helped many people. However, to his surprise, he descended deep down to the core of the earth, which was indeed hell. He described that he himself had seen a man walking on all fours like a dog, burned from head to toe, with bulging eyes and, moreover, wearing a leash around his neck with a demon holding the leash. He understood the situation of that man through his spiritual intuition. He said that this demon had been sent to torment the man from his childhood until his passing. The demon knew that if it prolonged the torment long enough on earth, it would cause this man to lose faith in the divine and make wrong decisions. When he falls into hell, it will have the power to dominate him, and he will become its eternal slave. Johnson also revealed that in a certain area of hell, he heard songs from the mortal realm, but instead of singers, it was demons singing, such as the songs Don't Worry, Be Happy by American musician Bobby McFerrin and Umbrella by the singer Rihanna. He continued to narrate, eventually departing from hell and returning to earth, where he beheld Jesus. Jesus spoke to him, saying, "You have always quietly harbored anger towards those who have harmed you, and you have always hoped that I would punish them." Jesus also reminded him, "These individuals are not yours but mine. You need only focus on the mission I have entrusted to you." In the end, Johnson also woke up and reflected on himself. He said that despite doing many good deeds and helping others, he had never forgiven those who had hurt him. Because of this, as death approached, instead of ascending to heaven as he had hoped, he had to descend into hell.
Number 4. Hanging on the edge of a precipice.
It was a fateful night in March 1992 when Matthew Botsford went to dinner with some colleagues at a restaurant in Atlanta. As they exited the restaurant, they suddenly heard a series of gunshots. Moments, they had witnessed 3 intoxicated young men who had been denied entry by the staff due to their unruly behavior. Out of anger, they pulled out their guns and opened fire on those around them. Unfortunately, a bullet had struck Matthew Botsford right in the middle of his forehead. He collapsed unconscious and was swiftly taken to the hospital. However, he fell into a deep coma state. At the hospital, doctors spared no effort to treat Matthew, though they assessed his chances of survival as extremely low. Remarkably, Matthew managed to overcome it all, emerging from a continuous 27-day deep coma while lying in the hospital bed. And when he woke up, he vividly recounted the terrifying scenes that he believed to be hell while in that state of unconsciousness. Matthew claimed that throughout that time, he had been chained and suspended over the mouth of a sulfur-infused pit, tormented by a four-legged creature, with cries of torture echoing all around him from millions of lonely and soulless spirits. What terrifies him even more is the overwhelming sense of solitude. Occasionally, a group of malevolent demons and bizarre creatures come to his location to disembowel him, the excruciating pain piercing through his heart and soul, only for the flesh to be mysteriously restored as the demons tear it out again. Immediately after, other demons arrive to continue tormenting him. This gruesome cycle repeats multiple times, and while enduring the horrifying agony, Matthew suddenly sees a gigantic hand reach through the wall, removing his shackles and taking him away, accompanied by someone's voice saying,
"Not the time for that."
And so, miraculously, he escaped death after 28 days of wandering in that hellish realm, although this escapade was more terrifying than enjoyable.
Number 3. The nun descended into hell multiple times.
A nun named Josefina Menendez once recounted that she had descended into hell not just once, but many times. She was born on February 4, 1890, into a devout family in Madrid, Spain. At the age of 30, Josefina decided to join the Society of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. In 1917, Josefina began establishing convents, and on July 16, 1922, she took her final vows in the order. Afterwards, Josefina wrote down all of her experiences in hell, encountering sinful souls, with horrifying and painful tortures that she had endured herself, such as being forcibly pressed onto burning wooden boards, being pierced with hot molten iron, and everywhere, there is the smell of burnt meat. In my notes, she wrote the following: "They led me into one of those wall niches, where it seemed they were imprisoning me with glowing red iron grates. And like that, they pierced the large steel nails into my body that they had set me on fire. There was a putrid odor that was suffocating. It was like the stench of burnt rotten meat, mingled with asphalt and sulfur, a mixture beyond any comparison in existence." Sister Josefina Menendez passed away on December 29, 1923, in the same convent where she had taken her vows several years earlier. After a short period, the church approved for Sister's spiritual writings to be published as a book titled The Call of Love. This book has been translated into many languages. Number 2. Journey to Hell in 23 Minutes. Bill Weiss, an American man, reminisced about his near-death experience, during which his soul detached from his body and journeyed to hell for 23 minutes. It happened on November 23, 1998. He woke up in the middle of the night to get a drink of water, and suddenly his soul was pulled out of his body through a long tunnel, descending straight into hell. The walls were jagged rocks, and there were rusty iron gates, even filthier, and a thick, putrid fog hung in the air. Bill recounted, "The first thing I noticed was the heat. It was incredibly hot. I wondered how I could survive in this terrifying temperature. My body's tolerance, and yet I still existed under this dreadful heat. I didn't know what the temperature was, but this heat exceeded any conceivable endurance. Then, I began to see two enormous demons appear in hell. I couldn't accurately identify what they were, only that they were colossal beings. They had scales like reptiles, and their bodies were covered in terrifying-looking tumors. It was horrifying to witness them. These two demons began to utter derogatory words about God and were approaching him. One of them grabbed and threw him against the wall, leaving Bill even more terrified. The other demon had sharp, scale-like protrusions all over its body, grabbed his arm, and pulled it backward like a rag doll. It seemed to claw at my chest, ripping me open, and then it would open up again. I looked down, feeling the excruciating pain, and I realized my body was completely destroyed, but Bill was still alive. These demons were incredibly malevolent and showed no mercy toward humans. Bill revealed that in hell, there were different levels of punishment, and he was separated, unable to communicate with others. He also mentioned that the horror of hell was beyond anyone's imagination, and all the people there were in utter despair. Those tormented in hell knew that there was no escape, and no one would come to their rescue. He also shared about the miraculous experience of meeting God and being led out of hell one day, even though he didn't recognize the face or form. However, he believed that God truly appeared, took hold of his body, and pulled him out of the abyss. Finally, Ritchie returned to the safe world and documented his journey into hell, which became the book 23 Minutes in Hell. The book was published in 2006 and made it to the New York Times bestseller list.
Facing the demonic forces.
The life and destiny of Howard Stamm, an absolute atheist, had to endure truly challenging trials when he faced a life-threatening stomach ulcer and had to undergo emergency surgery. Howard recounted that after being rushed to the emergency room, he woke up in a state of shock and realized that the people around him were not responding when he asked what was happening. He even tried to stop someone who was walking towards him, but to no avail. It wasn't until that moment that he realized he had left his physical body and was now a restless spirit right there in the hospital. At that moment, at the end of the room, he saw shadowy figures standing at the door, beckoning him as if inviting him to join their group. Simultaneously, a ghostly figure pulled him out of the hospital room. When Howard Stamm turned back to look, he saw the hospital room and distant loved ones fading from the sight. Those shadowy figures urged him to move forward, and not long after, they began to push and pull Howard Stamm deeper into a dark corridor. They suddenly turned malicious and tore at him, making him feel like he was entering hell. Howard panicked and tried to defend himself against the demonic attacks. At that very moment, he suddenly heard a voice echoing in his head, urging him to do something he had never done before, to pray. In excruciating pain within his lifeless body, Howard cried out loudly, invoking the name of the Lord in prayer. It was as if an infinite power pulled him out of the dark corridor filled with demons. Howard escaped from the horrifying nightmare, and strangely, he made a full recovery after waking up from that perilous surgery.
And if the mysteries of the world always hold a strangely fascinating allure for you, please join us for the continuation of this video on our channel. And now, farewell, and until we meet again.